Number 37 coming in slow. Pass him. The track is yours. All right, push it. Hit that speed limit. Very good. They're all behind you now. The track is yours. Think in seventh gear, engine stress.
A new tenant moved into the apartment across from me. A couple of days later, there was a knock at the door. I opened the door, and there stood the most stunningly beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And as far as I knew, all she was wearing was a mid-thigh length satin nightgown, which was tied at the waist and just barely covered her massive breasts. She smiled and asked if she could borrow some sugar. I stammered a quick yes and got her a cup, but we stood in the hallway chatting for a moment. I found it difficult to concentrate as her gown seemed to slowly part, showing more and more, and my cock got harder and harder with the view. Suddenly she looked around, then whispered, "I hear someone coming. Maybe we should carry on the conversation in my apartment." She grabbed my hand and we quickly entered her apartment. She closed the door, then turning towards me, she slowly undid her robe, letting it fall to the floor. She was now completely naked. "Well?" she said seductively. "What do you think is my best feature?" "Your ears," I replied softly as I gazed in wonder. "My ears?" She replied questioningly. "Yeah, when you said I can hear someone coming, it was me."
Hello, everyone. Today, I got a few dirty jokes for you, so let's start it. Number 1, a man comes home early from work and shouts, "Honey, I'm home!" No reply. So he goes upstairs and calls from the landing, "Honey, I am home," but still no reply. Frustrated, he goes into the bedroom and finds his wife on the bed. Stark. "Oh, Norman, I didn't expect you this early," she says, holding her chest and breathing heavily. He thinks she is having a heart attack and runs downstairs to ring for an ambulance. He starts dialing the emergency number when his young daughter starts pulling at his jacket. "Dad," she says. "Dad," she says again. "What is it?" "I'm busy," he says. "Uncle Jack is in the wardrobe with no clothes on," she tells him. He drops the phone and runs back to the bedroom. You, he shouts angrily at Norman. "You, my wife is having a heart attack, and you're going around scaring the kids."
An engineer found himself standing before St. Peter at the pearly gates of heaven. The gates were magnificent, shining under a celestial light, and St. Peter was there, looking busy as he worked on his laptop. The engineer, a bit disoriented but curious, cleared his throat to catch St. Peter's attention. St. Peter looked up, a bit distracted, and then his eyes widened in recognition. "Ah, you're the engineer," he said, scanning the information on his laptop screen. "I see here you've been assigned to hell." Before the engineer could react or protest, he found himself standing in front of a fiery cave. There he was greeted by none other than Satan himself, holding a menacing pitchfork in one hand. Satan, with a slight grin, pointed the engineer towards the large, flame-engulfed cave. The engineer, taking in his new surroundings, hesitantly walked in. However, after spending some time in hell, the engineer grew bored. He began to think of ways to improve his new environment. He started designing and implementing various building improvements. He created new land use plans, constructing large developments with modern amenities. He even managed to install air conditioning in all the structures. Over time, hell transformed from a place of eternal suffering to a sort of infernal paradise. Massive homes with refrigerators, large swimming pools, and waterfalls sprang up, and the engineer became extremely popular among the denizens of hell. One day, God called Satan to check in on how things were going in hell. "How is it all burning down there in hell?" God asked. Satan, sounding quite pleased, responded, "Hey, things are going great. We got air conditioning, new homes, swimming pools, and there's no telling what our engineer is going to come up with next." God, shocked and incredulous, exclaimed, "What the hell? You got an engineer? St. Peter must have messed up again. Send that engineer back to heaven immediately." Satan, however, was adamant about keeping the engineer. "No way. Everybody likes this guy, and I like the guy, and I'm keeping him." God, growing increasingly frustrated, threatened, "Oh yeah? How do you like a thunderbolt up your arse?" Satan, unfazed and laughing, retorted, "I just jump in my pool, haha." Fuming, God then said, "Listen, you demon, you send him back up here or I'll sue you." Satan, finding the idea amusing, laughed and said, "Haha. Yeah, right. And where are you going to find a lawyer in heaven? Haha." After a long and tiring day at work, a husband returned to his home. As he entered the house, he had a particular craving and an idea in mind. He found his wife in the kitchen, busy with some household chores. "Without wasting any time," he said to her, "Quick, get me a beer before it starts." His wife, wanting to be accommodating, went to the fridge and fetched him a cold beer. She handed it to him, and he promptly chugged it down, savoring the refreshing taste. No sooner had he finished the beer, he turned to his wife again and said with a sense of urgency, "Quick, give me another before it starts." His wife, slightly puzzled by his behavior, but still willing to oblige, went back to the fridge and got him another beer. The husband quickly chugged down the second beer as well, just as he had done with the first. Then, almost like a broken record, he said yet again, "Quick, get me another beer before it starts." By this time, the wife's patience was starting to wear thin. She looked at her husband, who was comfortably seated and showing no signs of getting up. Frustrated, she responded, "If you want another beer, you lazy bastard, get your fat ass up and get it yourself." The husband, hearing his wife's exasperated response, murmured under his breath, "Shit, it started." A man in search of new employment opportunities came across a vacancy at a local construction firm. Eager to secure the job, he went to the firm's office to apply. The construction firm was well known in the area for its large-scale projects and team-oriented work environment. Upon his arrival, he was greeted by the foreman, a burly man with a no-nonsense demeanor, who was responsible for overseeing the construction workers. The foreman began the interview by explaining some of the duties and responsibilities that came with the job. "We take turns making the coffee here," the foreman stated matter-of-factly. He looked at the applicant and asked, "Do you know how to make coffee?" The applicant, wanting to make a good impression, responded confidently, "I sure do." Satisfied with the response, the foreman moved on to the next question. "And can you drive a forklift?" he inquired. The applicant was momentarily puzzled. With a somewhat bewildered expression, he replied, "Why? Just how big is the coffee maker?" In many traditional wedding ceremonies, it's quite common to hear the groom assure the bride's parents with a promise. He often says, "I will make your daughter very happy after marriage." This is a heartfelt declaration, symbolizing his commitment and love towards his future wife, and a gesture of respect towards her family. However, have you ever noticed that during these moments, it's rather rare to hear the bride making a similar statement to the groom's parents? No, because women don't lie. There was a wealthy and sophisticated elderly lady who was driving her luxurious Rolls-Royce around town. She was on the lookout for a place to park. As luck would have it, she spotted the only available parking space in a busy area. Deciding to take it, she began to carefully reverse her grand vehicle into the spot. However, just as she was slowly maneuvering her car, a young woman in a flashy and compact sports car appeared out of nowhere. With a swift and cheeky move, the young driver quickly slipped into the parking space before the older woman could finish her maneuver. Feeling quite pleased with herself, the young woman rolled down her window, flashed a daring smile, and said to the older woman, "You've got to be young and daring to do that." The older woman, unfazed by the turn of events, didn't respond to the young girl's comment. Instead, she kept reversing her Rolls-Royce as if the sports car wasn't there. The young girl watched in shock as the older woman's car gently nudged the sports car. With steady and deliberate force, the Rolls-Royce pushed the smaller vehicle out of the parking spot. The sports car rolled down a slope, gaining speed until it crashed into a wall at the bottom, and to the horror of onlookers, burst into bright flames. After successfully parking her Rolls-Royce in the now vacant space, the older woman stepped out of her car with an air of calm and composure. She turned to face the young girl, who was standing there completely dumbfounded. The older woman said, "And you've got to be old and rich to do that." In a quiet neighborhood, there was a resident who suddenly heard an alarming and terrible noise coming from the apartment next door. Worried about what was happening, the neighbor quickly decided to call the police, hoping they could handle whatever situation was occurring. Soon after the call, the police arrived at the scene, ready to investigate the source of the disturbance. They approached the door of the noisy apartment and knocked firmly, announcing their presence. To their surprise, the door was opened by a woman. In her hands, she held a golf club, specifically a 5-iron, which was covered in blood. As the police entered, they noticed a man lying motionless on the floor of the living room. The scene was shocking, and the officers immediately checked to see if there was any chance the man was still alive. One of the officers, after examining the man, turned to the woman and said, "He's dead." Then, seeking to understand the situation, he asked her, "Ma'am, is this your husband?" The woman, looking distressed, nodded and replied with a quivering voice, "That is correct, yes." The police, trying to piece together what had happened, asked her directly, "Did you just hit him with that golf club?" The woman, tears starting to form in her eyes, admitted, "Yes, I did." She then broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. In her emotional state, she let the blood-stained golf club fall dramatically from her hand to the floor. She stood there, covering her face with her palms, continuing to cry. One of the officers, observing the gruesome scene and the condition of the man on the floor, asked the woman in a serious tone, "Wow, he's a mess. Can you tell me how many times you hit him?" The woman, amidst her tears and distress, managed to reply, "I don't know. Put me down for a 5." Farmer Brown and his wife had a day like any other, working hard in their vast fields. As evening approached and the sky painted itself with the hues of dusk, they started their journey back to their cozy farmhouse. However, something unusual caught their attention. Far off in the distance, amidst their crops, they saw a collection of bizarre and flickering lights. Curious and a bit cautious, Farmer Brown and his wife decided to investigate. As they drew closer, they couldn't believe their eyes. Right there, in the middle of their field, was a spaceship, gently descending to the ground. The couple exchanged bewildered glances, wondering if this was some kind of dream. To their amazement, 2 aliens emerged from the spaceship. These extraterrestrial beings approached the couple with a friendly demeanor. They explained that they were conducting research on human life, specifically focusing on human intimate relationships. The aliens then made a rather bold proposition. They wanted to switch partners with Farmer Brown and his wife for the night, purely for research purposes. Farmer Brown and his wife, though initially shocked, found themselves intrigued by this strange request. After a brief discussion, they agreed to the aliens' proposal. The night passed, and the next morning the aliens departed, leaving Farmer Brown and his wife to reflect on their extraordinary experience. Farmer Brown, bursting with curiosity but trying to maintain a casual demeanor, couldn't resist asking his wife about her night. His wife, with a hint of excitement in her voice, admitted that it was the best intimate experience she'd ever had. Farmer Brown, surprised and eager to know more, asked her to elaborate. She described how the alien initially seemed underwhelming, with attributes similar to a human but much smaller. But then, something incredible happened. The alien reached up and twisted his left ear, causing himself to grow significantly in size. Not stopping there, he then twisted his right ear, and to her astonishment, he transformed even further, becoming more impressive than she could have imagined. Upon hearing this, Farmer Brown was taken aback. He recalled his own wild experience and exclaimed, "Shit, no wonder that alien lady was trying to rip my ears off." In a cozy, bustling pub, there was a group of friends gathered around a table, enjoying their drinks and sharing stories. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. One of the men, looking a bit frustrated, decided to share something personal with his mates. He leaned in closer to the group and said, "Guys, you won't believe what's happening at home. My missus has started charging me $50 every time we have a bit of fun together." He shook his head in disbelief, expecting sympathy from his friends. The other guys at the table paused for a moment, exchanged knowing looks, and then one of them, trying to suppress a grin, replied, "That's not bad, mate. She charges us $100. Jack, a regular at his local social club, experienced something quite unusual one evening. As he was enjoying his time there, he noticed a young woman at one of the tables. What caught his attention wasn't just her presence, but the fact that she leaned over the table in such a way their bare backside was visible to everyone around. To Jack's surprise and amusement, he saw that each of her buttocks was adorned with a tattoo of the number 6. This peculiar sight sparked a thought in Jack's mind. He couldn't help but feel that this was some sort of a sign or an omen of good fortune. Excited by this idea, he quickly made his way over to the treasurer of the club. With a feeling of optimism, he purchased a ticket for the upcoming prize draw. The ticket he chose was number 66, inspired by the twin 6 he had just seen. He felt a surge of hope, dreaming about the bonus prize of £1,000 that was up for grabs the next night. The following evening, Jack arrived at the social club. Unfortunately, he got there after the prize draw had already taken place. Eager to find out the result, he turned to his friend at the bar and asked, "Was the winning ticket 66? His friend looked at him with a sympathetic expression and replied, "No. Sorry, mate, you were close." Jack asked, "What was it then?" His friend answered, "It was 606. There was a man who found himself in a pickle, trying to figure out the perfect outfit for a fancy dress party he was invited to. After much thought, he was struck with a spark of inspiration that seemed both amusing and clever to him. Upon arriving at the party, the host opened the door to find this guest standing before him, clad only in his briefs. The sight was both shocking and puzzling. Perplexed, the host couldn't help but blurt out, "What on earth are you meant to be?" With a mischievous grin, the man replied, "A premature ejaculation. I just came in my underpants." Two doctors who specialized in caring for older people were spending their afternoon gazing out of a window when they spotted an elderly gentleman shuffling down the street at a snail's pace. His legs were awkwardly spread wide, and he barely bent his knees as he moved. That looks like a severe problem with how he walks, possibly indicating the beginning signs of a condition related to the nervous system, maybe Parkinson's disease, suggested the first doctor. However, the second doctor had a different take. "I don't think so. It's more likely to be joint pain, possibly arthritis. Or maybe he's feeling the side effects of taking too many different medicines, including sleep aids." The debate continued, with the first doctor insisting, "His walking speed and the way his legs shake and are spread out makes me think it's definitely related to Parkinson's." The other doctor countered, "But the issue could be because of the negative effects from a mix of medications." "Let's make a friendly wager over lunch on my diagnosis," the first doctor proposed. "We should go and ask him politely to see who's closer to the truth about his condition." Approaching the elderly man, they explained, "Excuse us, sir. We are doctors specializing in the care of older adults and couldn't help but notice your cautious and slow walk. We have differing opinions on what might be causing your difficulty. Could you share with us what your condition is?" The old man, intrigued by their interest, responded, "I'd like to hear your guesses first. Then I'll let you know if either of you is right." Confidently, the first doctor said, "I suspect you might be showing the early signs of Parkinson's disease. Or is it an issue with your nervous system?" "Sorry, that's not it," the old man replied. The second doctor then guessed, "Could it be arthritis that you're dealing with, or maybe side effects from taking multiple medications?" Again, the old man shook his head. "No, that's not it either." "So what is the problem then?" the doctors asked, genuinely curious. With a mischievous smile, the old man shared, "I thought I needed to pass gas, but I was wrong about that too."
Oh my God,